Welcome to Hobbyist Now, your one-stop shop.
For all things nerdy and dirty.
That's right. That's right. I'm Claudian, and my comrade over here is Nick. We just ask that you like and subscribe and share if you like what you see. Also, please leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
We're also on Spotify. Our link is in the bio.
All right. So now we're going to do, as you all have been following us and watching us, we're going to talk a little bit about some news. Yeah, we got some news from Silent Hill. Are you ready to come with me to Silent Hill?
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. So Silent Hill 2, it is official. After months of rumors and speculations, Konami is remaking Silent Hill 2. During a Silent Hill transmission event, Konami showcased a 3-minute trailer that provided a look at the famously foggy town in glorious 4K. In addition to providing glimpses of characters such as Pyramid Head and other notable elements from the original game, the trailer confirmed that Bluebird team will be handling development, and it will utilize the Unreal Engine. Oh my god, it's just gonna look so beautiful with that.
God, yeah.
It will be a PS5 exclusive while also releasing with Steam. Now, I don't know if that's going to be like the day of it's PS5, then a week later Steam, or a month later. I'm not sure how that's going to quite play out yet. All right, so we got some more news today for the team for Silent Hill. Silent Hill F. In fact, it's part of a series of games that they're actually coming out with. So it's going to get real busy for Silent Hill. And in fact, there's talks of even a movie coming out real soon.
Hopefully it's better than the last two.
Silent Hill F is the new game as well. It was part of a Silent Hill announcement festivities. Konami announced Silent Hill F, a new story set in 1960s Japan. Described as a juxtaposition, a worldview of beautiful, therefore horrifying. Silent Hill F is being written by Yuzakiya 07, the acclaimed Japanese visual novel writer behind Higashira and Nomai Ko series. The atmospheric trailer shows a scenic but sinister Japanese town that's becoming engulfed in some kind of fungus. The ending of the trailer, however, is generally terrifying, with a woman covered in fungus. Having worked with stories that deal heavily with psychological and supernatural horror, Rikazaki 07 is a great choice for the writer on a new Silent Hill game. The setting is also unique for the series, given that Silent Hill is a town in the United States, right? So it's like they're going to move this to Japan, but the spinoff will likely expand upon the lore of the series. The game is also being developed by Neobrad, a studio that has helped develop Capcom's most recent games, like the Resident Evil RE-verse games. The producer of the series is Moto Okamoto, a Nintendo veteran who worked on games like Luigi's Mansion and Pikmin. It's unclear what the F stands for in the title, but this is shaping up to be a fairly exciting departure for the series. So, Nick, what do you think about this whole thing?
I'm excited. I've missed Silent Hill. It's been pretty absent for a while.
Yeah, trailer's really beautiful, so check it out. So what news do you got for us?
So some bad news actually for The Witcher. Netflix The Witcher will be returning for a 4th season, but it will be doing so without Geralt of Rivia. Liam Hemsworth will be replacing Henry Cavill after season 3. The news follows the equally internet-breaking news, that Henry Cavill will be returning as Superman, which I'm pretty excited for. I think he does a decent job. In the DCEU, there is actually no word if the two seasons are related, but with the timing of everything, it's pretty much,
Yeah. Currently on the YouTubes, those damn YouTubes. Currently on there, let's just say there's plenty out there what's happening, but we're not going to get down that rabbit hole.
Also, some crazy news here. Elden Ring, the seemingly unthinkable has actually just happened. An Elden Ring player has defeated every single boss without taking a single hit. The accomplishment was achieved by Twitch streamer and Elden Ring challenge runner Gino Machino. So that's absolutely wild. That game is just disgustingly hard.
I think we lost our
We did,
display here. All right, so,
but
things happen.
yeah. So that's just mad. But some bad news. Voice actor Kopsa passed away at 66. They passed away Sunday, October 23rd, so fairly recently. The English was the actual English voice actor of Char Ansbell in Mobile Suit Gundam. He also provided the English voice for Colonel Volt O. Huey. They constantly put open commanding officers in the various Galaxy Angel anime. Outside of anime, he's also known for various appearances in Stargate SG-1, X-Files, The Outer Limits, and for voicing Beast in the X-Men Evolution. Claudia, you want to give us some more news?
Yeah, again, another tragic story. So Sega artist, director, producer Rikio Kodama passed away at only 59. She was Sega's producer. She was a Sega producer and, like I said, director. So Sega producer Yosuke Okanora confirmed on Thursday that longtime Sega artist, director, producer Riko Kodama has passed away. Former Sega game director Yoshi Naka confirmed that later that day that Kodama has passed away on May 9th. She was 59. In fact, nobody even really knew about this. It wasn't real news, but fans spotted a memorial to her in the recently released Mega Drive Mini 2 console that shipped on Thursday, leading them to ask Okanara about whether she had passed away. Kodama is best known for her work on Sega's Phantasy Star Online. Sega's Phantasy Star role-playing game series. I don't know why I said the online. She was an artist on the first two Phantasy Star games and the director of Final Fantasy IV, The End of the Millennium, the fourth game in the series. She was also a director on the Magic Knight Rain Earth Saga Saturn game. She was also a producer of the Skies of Arcadia RPG and the Seventh Dragon RPG series. Also in some news, Resident Evil 8 Village, in fact, just announced the Winters expansion with games like Shadows of Rose DLC, which is now available to download right now. For those who can't get their RE4, I can't wait for that RE4. You can get your fix this way. Before we move on to Nick's favorite thing, I have a figure to kind of share with everybody. So going back to, again, that glorious Resident Evil Village, but we got ourselves a Lady Demetrius figure, Nick, and so she's like 9 foot tall, right?
Oh yeah, she's huge.
Okay, so what I'm about to say is actually accurate. You didn't hear me wrong, but this is a 1/4 collectible figure. Yes, that's right. 35-inch tall figure. And I know all of you classy guys and women that listen to our show. It's only about $1,500. So I guess y'all gonna be getting that for Christmas. So but yeah, so moving back to Nick.
So starting with all these figures, they will all be released in December of this year. They have the Batman Art Fix Joker, the Killing Joke. He's a 1/6 PVC figure. He will run 123 US, 123 Euro, 190 Australian, and 166 Canadian. He's really good looking. He'll be over here. Then we have a Kodokawa KD Cole, RE0, Starting Life in Another World, Rem and Rom Birthday 2021 version, 1/7 PVC figures. They don't come together. They're both separate. They'll both run you 126 US, 126 euro, 195 Australian, and 171 Canadian. And then they have the Amakuni Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters Blue Eyes Ultimate PVC figure, and he will run you a whopping 260 US, 260 euro, 401 Australian, and 352 Canadian. He's so detailed, very well detailed. He'll be over here as well. God, I just wish I had the money to get him. Claudian, moving over to you.
Yeah, so we got 2 game announcements that are coming out, or releases as is. Lord of the Rings, Gollum, which is coming out well over a year from now, December 23rd, 2023. And it'll be on everything Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox One, PlayStation 5, Xbox, and Microsoft Windows. It's an upcoming action adventure video game developed by I can never say this name, Nick. What's the name?
Datalic Entertainment.
Datalic. Wow. Whew. Datalic Entertainment, and a co-published by Datalic Entertainment and Nacon. It is based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, following the character of Gollum between the events of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And then another game that's a Lord of the Rings game that's coming out also in 2023. It's going to be The Lord of the Rings: The Return to Moria, which in fact currently does not have a actual release date, just that it's coming out 2023. Yeah, so speaking of Lord of the Rings games, we'll dive into our main topic for the night, which is going to be the Lord of the Rings franchise as a whole, starting with the games. Just want to take a moment to explain to everybody that yes, we are going to be skipping over a lot of stuff that's Lord of the Rings related. Seeing that the Lord of the Rings, 1937 was The Hobbit, 1954 were the 2 books, and then 55 was The Return of the King. So it had a lot of years to build up. So there's just an immense amount of games, collectibles, trading cards, all sorts of stuff. So just mind us when we skip over a lot of stuff. For those that are watching, you may see here I have the books here, The Unfinished Tales, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, The Hobbit, and then the Legendarium, which is the Silmarillion and the history of Middle Earth. So all this, the history of the Middle Earth, the Silmarillion, and Unfinished Tales were initially never really tended to be published. That was something that was done by Christopher Tolkien. So, and the first of those books was the Silmarillion. And then with the success of that book, they proceeded to actually write more, publish more books from the notes of Tolkien. So, so it's a lot. It's an immense thing. There's music that incorporates Tolkien. So we understand that. So we're not. So just bear with us.
We're not being lazy. Is what we're trying to say.
So we're gonna focus specifically on a real narrow portion of the games, and we're talking about video games specifically, because there's a lot of stuff that have like just bizarre, like dead end, like development past. And I mean, these are games that go back to like the 80s. So there's a little point for us, we feel. So we're gonna try to do more recent stuff. So yeah. So now we're gonna begin. That is our disclaimer. So we understand. Oh, why didn't you mention this? Why didn't you mention that? Believe me, especially me, I know. Like these are all mine, and you can tell. Like I love this stuff. This is like the greatest fantasy story ever. I know Nick's passionate about it, just like I am. So yeah. So we're gonna begin with the Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, which came out in 2002. It's an action hack and slash video game developed by Stormfront Studios for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. A 2D Game Boy Advance version of the game with the same name was made by Gryptonaut Games, a port of the GameCube by Hype, Hypnosis Entertainment, and to mobile by Jamdat, a version of the Microsoft Windows developed by Ritual Entertainment was canceled during development. The game was published on all platforms by EA, originally released in North America for the PlayStation 2 in October 2002. It was released in November of 2002 for the Game Boy Advance, and in December 2002 for the Xbox and GameCube. God, remember the GameCube?
Oh, I love the GameCube.
In May 2003 for mobile. The game is an adaptation of the Peter Jackson 2001, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and his 2002 film, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, which was released shortly after the game. It's not an adaptation of the J.R.R. Tolkien's Two Towers, the second volume in his Lord of the Rings novels. Anything from the novel not specifically mentioned or depicted in films could not be represented in the game. This is because at that time, Vivendi, Universal Games, in partnership with Tolkien Enterprise, held the rights to the video game adaptation of Tolkien's literary works, while EA held the rights to the video game adaptation of the New Line Cinema films. EA chose not to publish the game based on the Jacksons' The Fellowship of the Ring film, instead incorporating some of the plot and footage into their Two Towers game, which was released a few weeks after Vendettia's The Fellowship of the Ring game, a licensed adaptation of the Tolkien novel The Fellowship of the Ring. The Two Towers received a generally positive response, with a critics praising the recreation of sets, scenes from the movies, and the epic scope of some of the battles. Some, however, criticized the game for being too short and the combat overly repetitive, which I agreed. I thought it was. It kind of got a little like, really, this again. The game was a financial success, selling almost 4 million units, and outselling Vivendi's The Fellowship of the Ring game, which sold just over 1 million. Nick, we're going to move to you.
Yeah. So The Lord of the Rings Return of the King, which is the sequel to that game, was released in 2003. It is a hack and slash action game developed by EA Redwood Shores for the PlayStation 2 and Windows. It was ported to the GameCube and Xbox by Hypnos Entertainment, to the Game Boy Advance by Kryptonite Games, to mobile by Jamdat, and OS X by Beenox. The game was published by Electronic Arts. It is a sequel to the 2002 game Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. The game is an adaptation of Peter Jackson's 2002 film, The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, and his 2003 film, The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, which was released shortly after the game, and is not an adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's 1954 novel, The Return of the King, the third volume of The Lord of the Rings. Anything from the novel not specifically mentioned and depicted in the film could not be represented in the game. This is because Vivendi's Universal Games, in partnership with Tolkien Enterprises, held the rights to the video game adaptations. This is going to be a very common thing in a lot of these games. The game is similar to its predecessor in basic gameplay, but differs by adding multiple storylines, more characters, and increased interactions with environment. A 2-player co-op mode is also available for some of the missions. As with the Two Towers, The Return of the King was developed in close collaboration with the filmmakers, using many of the actual reference photos, drawings, models, props, and other assets from the film. The game was met with positive critical reception for its graphics, audio, and gameplay, although the camera positioning was short-length and were criticized.
Yes, the PS2 camera.
Oh god, they were so terrible.
Oh.
Claudian, want to move us on to the next game?
Yeah, so the next one will be The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. Is a 2004 video game developed by EA Redwood Shores for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. A turn-based tactics version of the game was developed for the Game Boy Advance by Gripnautics games. The game was published on all platforms by EA and released worldwide in November 2004. The game is a loose adaptation of Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings film trilogy, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, as it is not an adaptation of the J.R.R. Tolkien's 1954 novel, The Lord of the Rings. Anything from the novel not specifically mentioned or depicted in the films could not be represented in the game. This is because at the time, we all know the story, blah, 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 blah. The game received mixed to positive reviews. Most reviewers praised the graphics, but many found the storyline and character development weak, and the gameplay somewhat too derivative of Final Fantasy X, which had come out at the time. Back to Nick.
Lord of the Rings Lord of the Rings Online was released in 2007 and is actually still currently kicking.
Mm-hmm.
It's a MMO RP role-playing game for Microsoft Windows and OS X. It's set in J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle Earth, taking place the time period of Lord of the Rings. Originally developed by Turbine, the game launched in North America, Australia, Japan, and Europe in 2007. The Lord of the Rings Shadow of Angmar. Players could create characters of 4 races and 7 classes and adventure through the region of Eriador. In November 2008, Mines of Moria expansion was released, adding a region of Moria and 2 new playable classes. It followed the Siege of Mirkwood in December of 2009. In 2010, the game underwent a shift from its original subscription-based payment model to being a free-to-play game.
Mm-hmm.
The game saw continued development, alternating between paid expansions and free expansions, which added new content in the regions of Isengard, Rohan, and Gondor. In late 2016, it was announced that the publishing of the game would transfer from Warner Brothers Entertainment Interactive to Daybreak Game Company, with development being taken over by Standing Stone Games, made up of former Turbine staff. The game development continued in 2017. The Mordor expansion was released, bringing the main storyline to a close. The story then shifted to showing how various inhabitants of Middle-earth dealt with the downfall of Sauron, and with the Minas Morgul expansion, which was released in 2019, and the Fate of Gundabad released in 2021. Claudian.
Yeah, I think it's like for the VIP subscription that they have, it's like $15 a month, something like that.
So DCUO.
Yeah, so you can play it for free, but there is actually a pay to play kind of mechanic there. So, but yeah. So moving on to the Lord of the Rings Conquest is a 2009 action game developed by Pandemic Studios and published by EA. It derived from the Lord of the Rings film trilogy and borrowed many gameplay mechanics from Pandemic's other games, Star Wars Battlefront games. The game allows the player to play both as the forces of good and evil, but unlike the Lord of the Rings, the battle for Middle Earth, the latter option is based around Sauron stopping the One Ring from being destroyed and using it to regain his lost power. Pandemic was aided by Weta Digital in developing the game. They provided many of their digital models, including Fell Beast. Pandemic also used elements that were cut out from the films and have been taken inspiration from J.R.R. Tolkien's original fantasy series, such as a level based loosely on Balin's Conquest of Moria, in which Gimli attempts to retake the Dwarven city from the orcs. Some inspiration was less direct. The armies of Rohan and Gondor decided not to attack Minas Morgul in the novel, but a level in the game is based on what might have happened if it had what might possibly have happened if it had happened. The game uses Howard Shore's score. The film score to the film as its soundtrack. The Lord of the Rings Conquest received mixed reviews, with criticism focusing on combat, graphics, voice acting, balance issues, artificial intelligence, bugs, and multiplayer. Nick?
Lord of the Rings War in the North was released in 2011. The game contains narrative elements unique to both the novel and the films, although the aesthetic design is based more specifically upon the look of the films, with characters in the game bearing likeness to the actor who portrayed them in the films. The game does not directly adapt the story depicted in the novel and films, but instead depicts a trio of adventurers whose quest runs parallel to the main narrative, occasionally intersecting with it. The story follows them as they attempt to track down and defeat the powerful Black Numenorian named Angudar, whom Sauron has employed to lay waste to the northern regions of Middle Earth, while Sauron himself concentrates on Rohan and Gondor. The game received mixed reviews, with critics praising the graphics and tone, but criticizing repetitive combat, weak storyline, and a poor character development. It was also criticized for containing several game-breaking bugs. War in the North was a commercial failure. In fact, many critics attributed it to the timing of the release several weeks after Dark Souls, on the same day as Uncharted 3, and 10 days prior to the Elder Scrolls. So this game was just doomed from day one.
That's like that's a bad time to be mixed between.
Oh God, yeah. Drake, Uncharted 3 and Dark Souls, and then Skyrim. Like,
no chance.
No chance. Claudian.
Yeah. So, oddly enough, I got this game, but I know Nick. This is your favorite game.
I absolutely love.
I know you want to talk about this, but I will instead take your place and talk about this game, and that is the Lord of the Rings, the Lego game. Is a Lego themed action adventure game, video game that came out in 2012. Wow, 2012. That was when the world was supposed to end. What happened? Developed by Traveler's Tale, that was released on Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo DS, PlayStation Vita, Microsoft Windows, the Wii, PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360. The OS X version of the game, published by Feral Interactive, was released on February 21st, 2013. Based on the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, the game follows the original but spoofed storyline of the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King, taking players through the epic story events, reimagined with the humor and endless variety of Lego play. The game utilizes music and voices acting taken from all three films of the film trilogy. Developer Traveler's Tales has stated they toned down the slapstick humor found in other Lego licensed titles. The game follows the events in the film. However, like the Lord of the Rings, the Lego Star Wars series, some scenes from the films have been altered to become more family friendly and provide comic relief to the player. On January 1st, 2009, all digital sales of the game was halted. This was confirmed a few days later by publisher Warner Bros. Interactive. The game was later re-added to Steam on April 22nd, 2020, and it has been added to the Xbox backwards compatibility on the Xbox One and Series X and S consoles on November 16th, 2021. Back to you, Nick.
Okay. Middle Earth Shadows Mordor, so a much more recent game, was released in 2014. It is an action-adventure video game developed by Monolith Productions and published by Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment. An original story based on Legendarium, created by J.R.R. Tolkien. The game takes place between the events of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings film trilogies. The player takes Talion, a Gondorian ranger who bonds with the wraith of the elf lord Celebrimbor, as the two set out to avenge the death of their loved ones, players can engage in melee combat and use wraith abilities to fight and manipulate enemies. The game introduces the Nemesis system, which allows the artificial intelligence of non-playable characters to remember their prior actions against the game's protagonists and react accordingly. The game development began in 2011, and in order to create an accurate environment and be consistent with Tolkien's books, the developers consulted many of the people from Warner Brothers, as well as Peter Jackson, director of the film trilogies The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. They also received assistance from Weta Workshop, who advised them. The special effects Christian Cantamessa served as the game's lead writer, while Dan Abnett was recruited to write dialogues for the orcs featured in the game. Monolith focused on the development of the PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One versions, while the development of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 versions were outsourced to Behavior Interactive. The game was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One on September 2014, and PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in November of 2014. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor received generally favorable reviews upon release. Most praise was directed at its combat, open-world design, and Nemesis system. Some criticism was aimed at the game's story and boss battles. Shadow of Mordor marked the biggest launch for the game based upon Tolkien's universe, and would go to win several awards from video gaming publications, including Game of the Year. The game was supported by downloadable content upon release. So yeah, Gladian. Moving on to you for the next game.
So this will actually bring us up to current. In fact, Middle Earth: Shadow of War is a 2017 action role-playing video game developed by Monolith Productions and published by Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment. It is the sequel to the 2014's Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor, and was released worldwide for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One on October 10th, 2017. Shadow of War continues the previous game's narrative, which is based on the J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium and set in between the events of Peter Jackson's The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogies, from which the game takes inspiration. The player continues as Talion, the Gondorian ranger who's bonded with the wraith of Elf Lord Celebrimbor, as they forge a new ring of power to amass an army to fight against Sauron. The battle builds up the Nemesis system introduced in the Shadows of Mordor, allowing Talion to gain followers from several races of Middle Earth, including orcs and oglots, and plan out complex strategies using these to complete missions. Shadow of War had generally favorable receptions from critics, abided more mixed than its predecessor. Praise was aimed towards the gameplay and improvement on the Nemesis system, although story elements and changes made to establish characters received some negative reactions, as well as the that messy microtransaction and loot box, which this was the game that broke the world. This was the game that was like,
well, this game got hit hard
this
for the
game.
microtransactions.
It was this game, and I can't remember the other one. This game and another game came out, and it was like the loot box. It was total
pandemonium.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Wow. All right, so we are going to actually end the episode here. There will be a part 2. It's ran a little longer than we planned. Well, we kind of knew it was going to.
Oh yeah, it's Lord of the Rings.
So it's Lord of the Rings. So, yeah, you're not going crazy. There is this part 2, so go check that out. All right, see you over there on that episode 2.
See you in part 2.